finance, but in particular today, we're talking about modeling a positive money mindset with your college
Yes.
student. So Kelly, take it away.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I love this topic. It's so near and dear to my heart. So I think the number one thing I can say to parents is just to be really, really aware of what you are modeling to your kids about money, right? Even if it's inadvertently, right? We need to be really aware of the words we're using and our attitudes and things like that. So that is the number one thing that affects our kids' mindset about money.
Okay, I've got a question for you on that.
Okay.
I'm a huge saver. So do you need to, I guess I don't know what to ask you about that, but I know that's got to be reflected on the things that I say. My husband is kind of in between. But
Yeah.
I have a child that's a big spender. So as you're talking, you can throw your thoughts in there.
Yeah, no, I hear that a lot. And kids who are spenders make parents very nervous for
Mhm.
good reason. I mean, right, with people who haven't had their spending put in check can get into really big trouble. So I really get that. And I just try to give parents a little bit of a different perspective. Spenders left uncontrolled become very miserly.
Mm.
Saver or so did I say that right? Savers who are left unchecked get very miserly, but spenders tend to be a little more generous, right? So think of it that way. Spenders are a little less risk averse. They're a little more comfortable with some of the forms of investing. Spenders tend to enjoy life a little bit more because they're not afraid of that sinking number in the bank account. So there is a good aspect to spenders, but I understand that it can be very scary, if it's left unchecked, for sure. That's definitely something you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I'm a little jealous sometimes of spenders because, yeah, they don't worry about spending money, and so I do appreciate that side of it too. And I've got one spender kid and one saver kid, so I definitely see that difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going into marriage, my husband was very much the spender and I was very much the saver. And I think we've kind of grown closer into the middle at this point, but it was difficult at the beginning for sure. And he's definitely taught me how to enjoy money. Like we've taken vacations that had it been up to me, we would have never taken. And not that we couldn't afford it, but it was like, oh, just put the money in the bank. So there's definitely good sides to spenders, but I understand parents' concerns for sure. All right. So I get our second one about money mindset is we really need to be teaching kids that money is under our control. And so there's a lot of wording out there we use sometimes like, oh, we can't afford it. Or, oh, this thing happened to us, right? And a lot of times we can afford that item or the thing that happened to us was probably really under our control. And so we need to be modeling that for our kids like, oh, oops, I spent too much this month. Or, yeah, we can afford that, but that's not a good choice for us at the moment. Just all kinds of things. And, maybe we need to cut back on spending on eating out. Just modeling the fact that we are under control of what happens with our money. Maybe not how much comes into the house all the time, or some of the bills or things that happen with our cars or things like that. But for the most part, we are under control of how we spend the money that we have.
Yeah, and I see that to be really healthy with college students too, in thinking about promoting getting a job. Where
Mhm.
now you have a little bit more control if you can control how many hours you're willing to work versus waiting for that check to come from mom and dad.
Yeah.
So I think, when you're thinking about that, I understand that you're talking about how we speak to it, but also promoting then you do have this control. If you want
Yeah.
more money, you've got options, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we feel like we're not in control, we kind of take on this victim mentality, right? And we don't want our kids walking through life like, oh, I'm never making enough money, or oh, I never have enough, or oh, my bills are too much. And it sounds like it's everybody else's fault. And
Or, oh, everybody else has, their parents are giving them all this money, in college, and that's not always true either, but they think that. Mhm.
right, right. So, being in control of our money is what gives us power to reach our goals, to start investing, all of these things. And so it's so important that they feel like they are in the driver's seat when it comes to their money.
Love it. Yeah.
All right, next is gratitude. This is super important because when we feel gratitude about our money, then we are freed up to have a strong money mindset. Again, if we're grateful for what we have, we feel like we don't need to spend as much. We're back to spenders. And we don't feel like a victim. We feel grateful for what we have, right? And so it really kind of solidifies everything. One of my favorite ways to think of this is I read a book called Happy Money by Ken Honda. And he's Japanese. And so he says thank you to his money. He says arigato when it comes in, because he's so grateful that he had the opportunity to make it. But he also says arigato when it goes out, when he pays bills or when he buys things, and he thanks his money for the opportunity to serve him, right? And so when we have the money to pay our bills, it really is a privilege. Like, I don't know about our privilege, but it feels good that we're getting those needs taken care of. And so instead of griping about bills, maybe we say thank you. Thank you for, being able to pay the water bill this month. And I look forward to having water next month too.
Nice. Yeah. And, and I think about that too for college students. We really do talk about a lot of the anxiety around the cost of college, having more of that gratitude towards it, because it is expensive and it can be really stressful. Especially right now, we know with pandemic and everything else going on, and people struggling a little bit more than they probably normally would. But even past that, it's expensive to go to college. So, I love that thought, and to be speaking to that too, to just say, hey, aren't we lucky that you have the ability to go to college? That's cool.
Yeah. And to speak on that stress, I mean, people who practice gratitude, they sleep better and they have lower levels of stress. So that kind of all ties back into that, right? If we can teach our kids to be grateful, they'll spend less, they'll sleep better.
Yeah.
And we all win.
Yes. Well, and I liked your comment too about just having these conversations around, I'm making a choice. We can't afford it, but you know what? It's not something we need right now. In our house over the last, I don't know, probably 2-3 years, we've been trying just to get rid of stuff and not have so much stuff, and to go through the cabinets before we go to Target and figure out, do we really need that, blah, blah, blah. It might be cold medicine, but I'm like, okay, if we've got 10 of them in the, let's not buy it again. But really just having a little bit of more focus around, do we need more stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last one I have is optimism. We need to be conveying the message of optimism to our kids, especially hard right now with the economy the way it is and the pandemic. And, it's easy to slip into these narratives of, oh, are we ever going to come back from this? Or, oh, we'll never be able to pay off these bills, or that sort of thing. And so we need to be conveying optimism to our kids. Like, I really believe that we're going to come out of this, and that the economy is going to come back, and that we have the opportunity to, maybe take on an extra job and get over that big hump of debt, or whatever it is. Again, we're kind of tying in that whole, showing gratitude, things are in our control, and modeling optimism for our kids. Because, a little bit of my story is that we paid off $80,000 of debt in 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
We cut corners like you can't even imagine. We got rid of so much stuff, cars and cable and all kinds of things. But the only thing that kept us going was that optimism, that belief that we really can make a change in our lives. And so, if I didn't believe it, we wouldn't have been willing to do those things.
Yes. And so when you were going through that, did you still take an opportunity to maybe go out to dinner once in a while and do that kind of stuff?
So our eating out budget during that time was $50 a month.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I had 2 very young children, so they didn't eat a lot, but that was either one middle of the road meal or 2 very cheap meals. But we had been in debt and paycheck to paycheck for so long that we were willing to do whatever it took to make that a very short period of time to get that all paid off, and move forward. And so that's what we did for 2 years. $50 a month was our eat out budget. And so, but again, it all came back to that optimism. I had heard stories of people who were able to do this. And so I hung on to those, knowing that we could do it too.
Well, and seeing that number come down had to have been huge during the time frame.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you said something earlier that I really liked too. And that was when you talked about gratitude, but it was more about control, that like during this time, if it means getting an extra job or doing something to kind of take that control back,
Mhm.
that there are just lots of different ways that you can model that for your kids. I think
Yeah.
that's huge. And for them to see you sacrificing during the times that you need to sacrifice, especially when I think about this, because a lot of the kids that get to go to college come
Mhm.
from households that maybe there wasn't a lot of concern about money. Not all of them for sure, but I mean, I would
Right.
say the majority, that, to see that it's not easy, that even you
Mhm.
work a long time to be able to provide that for them, and to hear them speaking about the times that aren't so great is probably really healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, they say we don't know happiness without sadness, right? And we don't know success without really hard work. And it all ties in together. It can't be feast all the time. There are times that, we have to scale back and sacrifice and work hard. But those are also the times that they reach back to when things are difficult. Like for me, when I reach back and when I do have to do something difficult, I can reach back to that experience and say, you know what, I did that. I know I can do this. So there are lessons in those hard times and those sacrifices too.
Nice. Kelly, I appreciate it. I got a ton out of this. Anybody that has questions for Kelly, please
Please.
reach out. Her information is scrolling along the bottom. For anybody that's interested in talking to me about career paths for your high school and college students, or yourself, I do that too. Give me a call. We love having you. And Kelly, we'll see you the next time.
Thank you.